Uh, it's so much fun when all the faces pop up. It's like a rush. Hi, you guys. So we are now live with the Help Network. It's so sweet to see all your faces. Just so you all know, I can see you, so I get to look at you when I talk to you. And I have a helicopter overhead, and I hope you don't hear it too much. So I'm just going to wait just a minute or two before we start. So my name is Karen Strassman, and I am an on-camera actress, a voiceover actress, and a dialect coach. I want to make sure everybody can hear me okay. If you can hear me okay, do this. If you need me to be louder, do this. Good. All right. I have been working as a dialect coach for over 30 decades now. And it's something that I'm passionate about. And I'm passionate about helping people get find dialects and get proficient at dialects with even more ease. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to give you all a whole bunch of tools, I hope, to help you learn dialects a lot easier than you thought you could. And my goal is to give you tools that will help you be independent in learning dialects. If you choose to work with a dialect coach, great, but these tools will help you no matter what. And I have found that they make it easier for everyone, and they make dialects more accessible for everyone. So that is my goal and intention here today. Um, so first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys a little introduction to who I am and how I came to all this. And then I'm going to jump into the information and give you guys as much information as I can cram into to an hour or 45 minutes or something like that. And at the end, I will take questions, and I can see you guys. So at the end, you can raise your hand, and I'll try and look at the chat too, although often the chat escapes me when I'm talking. So, but I'll try and look at that as well along the way. So the first thing I want to do is whenever I give a class or a workshop or an interview and people give me free rein to do whatever I want to, is I like to dedicate the class and the space. I find it kind of opens up the space. So I thought about it this morning, and what I'd like to dedicate this hour together to is our human differences. Working with accents and dialects brings such delight into really experiencing all the differences of all the cultures around the world. And the deeper I go down the rabbit holes of different accents and dialects in different regions, the more you really get a sense of just the different cultures, the reason they're like that, how they perceive things, how they experience life, the temperatures, the climates, the cultures they grew up in, the cultural norms there. And it's given me such an appreciation for our differences all over the world, and things that I might not agree with or not even like, but it's given me an opportunity to understand it from the inside. So I would like to dedicate this hour to our differences around the world, and the fact that our differences is what makes the colors of this planet, even if they sometimes clash, and the coolness of trying to understand them a little bit better and appreciate that we all kind of want the same thing around the world, even if it doesn't always look like it on the outside. So, aho, as the American Indians say. I'm going to give you a little introduction before I jump into the information about how I came to all this and sort of created my own technique for learning dialects. When I was a student, I decided to go to France to study. I'm from the East Coast. My dad is from New York. My mother was from Denmark. So half of my family lives in Denmark, and she didn't think I would need to learn to speak Danish, so she didn't teach it to me, but I would travel home to Denmark and learn as best I could from my family there. And I was told my grammar was horrible, but my accent was very good. And I enjoyed doing that, and I enjoyed imitating them speaking English. When I was a student, I decided I wanted to study in another country, so I went to France. And I was studying theater there. I didn't speak French at all very well. I was studying theater, and I was studying psychology, and I was learning to speak French. And I answered a little ad on a bulletin board in a French theater. They were looking for an American student, perhaps, who could be an apprentice at a studio where they coached French actors to act in English for the camera. And it was sort of a renowned studio all over France where French actors came to train in English so that they could be in all the American co-productions that came into France and Paris, and so that they could, act in English. And I got the apprenticeship, and it turned out I was really good at it, and it was kind of a fluke. And so they hired me the next year. I was 19 years old, as one of their full-time dialect coaches. There was 3 of us, and I started coaching actors of all ages to act in English. And then they sent me to all these famous French actors' homes to prepare them for their roles in English. And then they sent me on sets to coach for co-productions. And one day I was on a set, and the director said, "Oh, little Karen, she's very cute. We give her a role." So I got a role in a French TV series, and I got an agent there. And this is kind of cool because it was after growing up in America, where I was told that I wasn't pretty enough to be a TV actress, but I wasn't ugly or interesting enough to be a character actress, and I believed it. So it was sort of cool to be able to have access to this world when I didn't think that I was right or good enough. And so I started acting professionally in France, and then I got into the French Royal Dramatic Academy of Theater, which is sort of the French school for acting, where the government actually pays you as a student to be an actor there. And I worked to refine my French accent with dialect coaches in French so that I could do Molière and Racine and Shakespeare in French and perform in French. And then after that, I started doing theater all over France and TV and films, and I started getting into voiceover there. And I did most of my voiceover actually in English. There was a small community, and we did I guess I was good at it, and I got a lot of work doing cartoons in English for the international market. So very young, I started working as a dialect coach, and also had to lose my accent in another language. As I went along that road, I just became geeky passionate about accents. And so along my path, even once I moved back to this country and started working in Los Angeles, I've always just coached on the side and coached people around the world to learn new accents and lose their accents. And it's just been something that I'm so grateful to be able to give. So along my way, I've kind of figured out a lot of things about accents that I found, like, when I went to my high school summer camps or drama schools, that they were teaching phonetics and things like that, and they were trying to help you learn the sounds for various accents. And I found when I worked with people that just teaching the sounds and phonetics wasn't necessarily an accessible doorway into doing accents really well. And I started to figure things out and develop ways to get there, and things that people don't always know about accents to help people access them. And so that's what I'm going to share with you guys today. Although phonetics are very, very helpful, you don't need them to learn accents. And I find that often it takes you, we're all creative people here. So I find that very often it takes you into a different part of your brain, like the thinking brain, and to have to jump into your thinking brain and then be creative is sort of not the best route when you're an actor or a voiceover actor. So let me kind of take you on a little road to why accents actually exist. And this is going to kind of take you hopefully into a little aha of how to refine your way to accents that you want to find and can't quite get to sound quite right. All right, so here we go. When we are babies, we discover we're in a body, and we discover we have fingers. And their fingers are fun, and we play with them, and they're cool, and we put them in our mouth and we wiggle them. And then we discover that we have, and not necessarily in this order, but maybe we discover we have toes. We play with our toes, and that's really exciting, and they wiggle and they feel funny. And we discover we have a belly button. And along the way, we discover that we have a mouth and it makes noise. And we start playing with our mouth and making all kinds of fun noises. And we go and and we play with our tongue and our lips and the back of our throat. And we kind of trigger all these kind of muscles everywhere just because it's fun. And then what happens is we get older and we realize that language exists. And we start to imitate what our parents say. And something kind of miraculous happens. And I don't have the scientific research to explain exactly why, but I'm sure there's a neurological explanation. But to me, it's sort of an exciting miracle that when we imitate our parents at a very, very young age, and we repeat the words they say, we are able to reproduce those words and those sounds with the exact same muscles that our parents do. So for example, an American parent, American mother might say to her child, "Mommy, I'm your mommy." And the American child will pretty much do, "Mommy, mommy." And they'll have that nice open American sound, and they'll drop their jaw like Americans do. I mean, I'm talking sort of basic general standard American, not like New York American, which would be different. And they actually, as children, we somehow tune into those muscles, and not just the sound of the word, but our muscles resonate with our parents' muscles, and we're able to reproduce those sounds with those muscles. Just the same way, if it was a British mother, she would say, "Mummy, I'm your mummy." And the child would say, "Mummy, mummy, mummy." And they wouldn't use that open back of their mouth. They'd use that front top of palate, "Mummy." A French mother might say, "Maman, je suis ta maman." And the baby would go, "Maman, maman." And the baby would not go, "Mama, mama." And it's fascinating. So then, as that child, as we learn to imitate those muscles and speak the language in the dialect that we are growing up speaking, we learn to use all of those muscles, and at the same time, all the other muscle groups that we were playing with as a baby, they disappear, and we just don't use them anymore. We don't tap into them. We don't visit them. We don't use them. So then, cut to us getting a little older, and we want to learn to speak another language or speak another dialect, whether it's, you know, a German person who comes here and then they live here for a while. And, you know, I have friends who say, "Yeah, I have this French friend or German friend or Russian friend, and they've lived here for 20 years and they still have their accent. They should know better. And it's because when we try to speak another language or learn to speak another language, no matter how proficient we get with vocabulary and grammar, what will often happen is that, one, we will hear the sounds of that new other language or dialect, and we will hear those sounds through the filter of the sounds that we recognized as a child. So we don't actually hear the sound that that other language or dialect is actually making. We hear the sound that sounds familiar to the sound that we already know. Isn't that fascinating? So when we try and reproduce that sound, we are actually trying to reproduce what we think we hear instead of the actual sound that is being made, because our ears have been tuned as children to those sounds. The other thing that happens is when we try and reproduce those sounds, we use the muscle groups that we're used to using to reproduce a sound that is actually being produced in another language or dialect by absolutely different muscle groups. So just an example I like to use because it's so obvious and simple is if you say to a French person, if you say, oh, hello, French person, say to me these words, little sister. And they say, oh, yes, little sister. I say, no, not little sister. Little sister, not E, but No, so yes, that is what I said, little sister. Because the French people use the front roof of the mouth to pronounce the sound. So, and Americans, and when I say Americans, I'm really talking about standard American, because we have all kinds of wonderful accents in different regions. So I'm really talking about what people term as standard or general American. Use whatever words you want, but sort of the American that that doesn't have a marked accent. So in standard general American, we tend to speak from here down and we resonate in our chest. So we speak the lower jaw, and you can really see that when I'm talking, I'm not using my upper mouth. And you can really see that this is what's working. And you can hear that I'm resonating more down here and here. So I'm not resonating as much up here, although in certain places on the East Coast, they might resonate, or, then we're going to resonate more up here, right? But general American, we're going to resonate a lot in the lower jaw and here. So if you talk to a French person, they have never, like my clients who come to me for accent reduction, almost all of the European ones and many clients all over the world, it's very rare for an accent to resonate in the lower jaw and the chest. And we don't think about it generally. Most of you here, although a bunch of you probably aren't, but a great number of you are probably speak general American. And we don't think about the fact that we really resonate down here and here. We're not even aware of it. But the clients that I coach all over the world, most of them, they don't know how to get into this resonance. Which brings me to the first thing I want to target. So what I'm going to do now, after I have explained to you why we have accents and why sometimes it's hard for us to imitate another accent because we're going at trying to imitate that other accent with the muscle group that we're used to using. And the fact that we do not know how to activate a new muscle group, and it doesn't even occur to us to visit another muscle group to find those dialects or that language. I just want to put a parenthesis right here because this is cool. I have been doing this for a long time and I love accents, but I'm not brilliant at them and I'm not a genius at them. I have some friends in the business who are just crazy brilliant at them. They can go to a city or a country, or, a specific place in the deep South, or a specific region of England, or just listen to it and just completely imitate it and have it be perfect. And I've said to one of those friends before, oh my God, would you teach me how to do that, accent? And he said, I can't. I don't know how I do it. I just do it. I'm not like that. I'm not a genius. I'm not brilliant. I'm just delightfully passionate and curious and obsessed. And so I'm probably no more skilled or have no more level of genius at accent than any one of you here. My ear is not that great. I'm not that of the best singer. Like I've just become curious and passionate about it and have developed tools. And this is also really cool to tell you guys, because it means that the route that I'm taking you guys and what I'm explaining, any of you can do this. You don't have to be super talented at it, because I'm not. So like, I just want to empower you guys to know that all of this is so accessible. Okay. So now I'm going to get into these things that we're not aware of because we don't think to look for them. And I'm going to give you guys tools to look for these things so you can find them when you're researching accents on your own. Oh gosh, there was something I wanted to say before then. It'll come along the way. I'll interrupt myself. So, oh yes, this is what I wanted to say. So how I perceive doing accents is not doing another accent or imitating another accent, but it is literally finding your way into the instrument of that accent. And I perceive every different accent and language as using a slightly different instrument. So some, it's like, so you're not going to try and make the same sounds as a piano with a violin. So let's learn how to play the piano. And so this way, if you approach accents in terms of how do I learn to play that particular instrument? How does a Russian, like, how does their instrument work? How does a British instrument work? As opposed to how do I sound British, mate? It's like, no, where are British people placing their instruments so I can sound like them? And so that's what we're going to dive into right now. So here we go. The first, and for me, the most important thing, and if you only get this with an accent, you'll be more than halfway there, often 65% there, is looking with each accent and trying to, and listen, I call it listen feeling, hear feeling is what I call it, hear and feeling with your muscles, where that accent lives and resonates. Okay, so I'm going to give you some examples about that. And so you'll understand what I'm meaning when I give you these examples. Okay, so for example, I just talked about how standard American really resonates down here, right? And this is really cool. You can even see, you guys can see, yeah. So you can even see right now when I'm speaking, and my American is generally standard American. And when I'm speaking, you can see that my jaw is really released, and we have a hinge in our jaw that happens right before you yawn. And you can all do that. And you can feel there's a hinge that releases right before you yawn. And for standard American, we actually release that hinge to make our open sounds. And, those of us who do speak that way, we don't even realize we're doing it. But for those of you who are from another country or do another dialect, it's an interesting thing to know. So standard American really resonates. I call it, for my foreign people, I call it a froggy pouch, because we kind of resonate more down here and more here. Again, unless, like, you say you're from New York. In New York, you can really hear that it's much more resonating here and it's moving through the nasal passage, right? And Southern, it's going to resonate, Southern accents are going to resonate much more in the roof of the mouth, right? But standard is really going to drop here and ground in our chest. So then we're going to look at some other accents. For example, I brought up British. British accent resonates on the roof of the mouth. And the interesting thing is they don't drop their jaw. So if you can really see that, you know, I'm not dropping my jaw, and they're not going to drop their jaw at all. And they don't use these muscles. They don't use their chest muscles. They don't use their chest resonance. They resonate right up here. And you can hear that the resonance goes through the nasal passage, right? And this is really, call Julian.
Karen, can you see us?
Yeah, can you see me? No, I can't. Can you guys see me?
Yeah, I can see you just fine, Karen.
How I got kicked off?
Totally fine.
All right.
Okay.
I'm back.
Good.
I'm like, where did everybody go? And then I had to tell the thing that I wasn't a robot. All right. So here we go. So British, right? So British, so they don't drop their jaw. They really don't. And as I'm doing this, feel free, whether you're on camera or not, because I can't hear you. So feel free to try all the things that I'm showing you, right? So I have to check how much time I have. All right, good. So they're going to resonate on the roof of their mouth, right? And they're not going to drop their jaw. The number one mistake that Americans make when they're doing a British accent is they drop their jaw. So Americans are like, oh, I'm British, and oh, darling, and oh, dear. And so if you go into because most of you probably play around with British, and many of you do it probably quite well. If you tell yourself, I'm not going to drop my jaw, I'm going to resonate on the roof of my mouth, then right there is like a portal into British. And if you just make that one correction forever and ever, amen, on your British accent whenever you're auditioning, you will find that it will sound true, much more so. And that's just finding where the resonance is. And when I say resonance, it's also a question of what muscles are working. So when you can feel into, and again, do this at home. You can really feel that there are muscles on the roof of the mouth that are very active in British that aren't in standard American. Like I really don't use the muscles on the roof of my mouth as much, right? I'll give you a couple other examples. French. So the French is placed, I'm going to be very specific here. It's placed on the roof of your mouth, right behind your front teeth. So the French accent is placed on the very front roof of the mouth, behind the front teeth. And the other thing is, in the French accent, you do not drop your jaw. They're very private people. So they're not going to be flapping their mouths like that, you know? And that is going to be how you get that really nice French feeling. You can hear when I'm doing it, how it's right there. And you do that, you resonate there, you let it go a little bit through the nasal passage, and you do not drop your jaw. And I guarantee you, if you do that, you are 50 to 75% of your French. You're probably doing it at home and you're probably hearing that it works, right? So same thing with the German accent. The German accent, they do not drop their jaw, yeah? So for the German accent, it's right behind the bottom teeth and front teeth. So it's not really hitting the roof of the mouth, but it's really in the front of the mouth, but they do not in dropping their jaw. So if you do not drop the jaw and you put the sound right there, you're getting your stereotypical German accent. Yeah. Another fun one, a Russian accent. A Russian accent, back roof of mouth. A Russian accent in pocket, back roof of mouth. You feel where it lives? You feel where that Russian place it's living. Um, so the exciting thing is that if you can listen to a dialect, listen to people speaking that dialect, if you choose to work with a coach, but the first step that I like to do is figure out where that lives. Like I kind of say where it nests, where its home is. Because if you can find where it lives and where its home lives in the instrument and just isolate it there, you're going to be half of the way there. And then the rest is just details. You know, that's your cake. And then the rest is like frosting or decoration or whatever. You know, that's your vase on a potter's wheel, and you got your main vase, and then the rest is, you know, you put a handle on it and you'll do details, but that's the main foundation. So then what you want to do is you want to start looking for other details. And I'm going to go over some of these details in absolutely no specific order. They're just going to be the orders that they come to me. Something that I'd like to point out, which is a very interesting thing, is different. Oh, wait, no, I'm not going to do that yet. I'm going to start with this one. Different accents move in different directions. So, for example, the standard American accent drops down inside the body, right? Contrary to popular belief that Americans are loud and everything, when you get a New York accent, that's going to project forward through the nasal passage. So the New York trajectory is that it's going to be pushing forwards. And, you know, that's your part of the country where that's just, you know, whether you're in Manhattan, it's going to be pushing forwards. It's going to be a little bit more subtle. They speak a little faster there. It's a little bit more subtle, but there's still a movement forward from the roof of the mouth through the nasal passage. You get to the place like the Bronx, something like that. It's going to be a little bit more inside, but there's still going to be a push forwards. And that, you know, and then the New York accent that comes from Italy, it's the same thing. It's got that push forwards, which is very interesting because if you get the Italian accent, it has a push forwards, you know. Italian, there's always a push. So if you're standing in front of a microphone, you have to do the Italian accent. What I like to do is I feel a little push. See? And that's like you go to New York and then you get the Italian New York accent that's right there. So Italian, right behind there. But the difference between an Italian accent and a French accent, which are basically almost placed in the same area, is the Italians are pushing forwards. French is totally staying inside the mouth. Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool, you guys? So you have like a similar placement, but then they have a different dynamic. Standard drops down inside the chest. So, and we're not muscling our way through it. So I have a lot of foreign actors who come to me for accent reduction, and they're trying to push it forwards. You know, yeah, I speak American. You know, some of the French clients like, yeah, shit, man, I speak American. And we don't do that. We drop down and we resonate here and here. What direction does Russian go? Russian go back. Russian's going backwards. Hit roof mouth and go back. Yeah, it's Russian's going backwards. But resonate a little bit through nose, but go backwards. So you have all these different accents, and the trajectory of them is going to make a big difference. And now I'm going to share something really cool. So for example, we talk Russian accent, go backwards. Yeah. Russian accent, pocket, roof of mouth, go backwards. And then what happens is as you move across the globe, from Russia, you're going to start heading south, and the placement and the trajectory is going to change. So the Russian accent back there. Then you're going to move to, for example, Polish accent. Polish accent more middle of mouth. Here, Russian accent backwards. Russian more squinched, little pocket backwards. Sounds very squinched. Da? You hear I use technical word squinched, but you understand what I'm saying. So Russian going backwards, right? Then you move into Romania, then you move into Poland. Poland, you can hear that it's not so far back, so they still roll R's, but Poland much more middle roof of mouth. Can you guys hear that? Polish, right? Now, and then you move into Romania, and Romania much more forward. But they're very similar dialects, but also it's getting warmer. So Russian squinch back roof of mouth, it's very cold. They do not want to open up mouth to take in cold air. Very uncomfortable to pull in air full through mouth in cold weather. Da? But as it starts, you go to Romania, starts getting less cold. And then you also have a Romania, Italian, you start to have juice. You start to have juicier plants, in Romania. Then you also have Greek. Greek, which is very much in middle mouth. Greek, like right there. And you guys are recognizing this. It sounds right? And all I'm doing basically is taking the same basic dialect and moving it to that placement. And then what happens is you get to the Arabic countries, which are, again, like, people come to me like, how do I learn Middle Eastern? And I say, basically, you start with a Russian accent, but then you move it to the front of your mouth. So Arabic countries very much in front. They're right there. They're hanging out where the Italian accent lives. It's hot, and it's intense. So Arabic accent, front roof of mouth, with pushing forward, heavy. And again, that's also going to mirror the culture. All right, can you guys still see me? Yes, okay, what happened? Okay. So isn't that cool, you guys? So when you're listening to an accent, that's the sort of thing you want to start listening for and feeling for, hear feeling for, right? Let me give you some other examples that are in different places. Oh yeah, what direction does a German accent go in? So German accent stays inside of mouth. German people very, have to, German accent, there we go. So German accent, so German are very private people. So it stays inside of mouth. And you notice as well that everything I'm describing also has to do with temperature and culture. And when you're working on an accent, we're actors. So our job is to drop into other realities. So you want to allow yourself to drop into, oh, they live in a cold culture where it's cold all the time. New York, they live in a city where everything's loud. So you're gonna, and you have to get your way through the subway, and, what rhythm is that culture in? What the German people, for example, so very private people, yeah. And it's a stereotype, but it is part of the weather and things like that. So that is what direction accents go in. Do they stay in the mouth? Are they pushed forward? Do they lilt forwards? Do they stay back? What direction do they go? Start listening for that. Another thing that you want to look for is how open are they? What is their flow or non-flow? For example, the French accent is very much a flow. And I have people who come to me and they say, Karen, when I do French, sometimes it becomes German. And sometimes when I do German, it becomes like a French accent. And how do I make it different? And So really, an easy way to do that is to think that the French, it is very, very fluent. Because culturally, you think about it, it is the language of art and beauty and culture and sensuality, you know? So it's very much flowing like this. Now, you get several regions in France where it's not as flowing. Like generally, the Belgium accent is very much more like this. My friends who are from Belgium, they are more like this. But that is normal because they are near where Germany is. So the Belgium accent it's going to be a little bit more thick and choppy. Um, all my dear beloved friends from Belgium. Um, and so you go to Germany now, and you will notice that the German accent is choppy because it's a little bit part of that culture. They are less about sexuality and they're not that they're not artistic or sensual, but it's culture. So it's a different culture. So when you do a German accent, you can hear that it is a little bit more choppy, and that will help you be more into German accent, and that will help you make the difference between the German accent and the French accent. So you want to look for those things. What is the rhythm? Is it flowing? With the Italian accent, it's a very generous culture. See, it's a go forwards, and it's a flow forwards, and it's a nice thing like that. Um, and I haven't touched on Spanish. When last we were launching. Also, so the Spanish accent is a very generous life and sunshine accent, no matter where you are on that Spanish plane. Um, but Spanish accent, they resonate through the nose, see? And so a Spanish accent is, they're not quite as a pushing forwards. And Italian is much more in the front of the mouth. Spanish is more on the roof of the mouth through the nasal passage. Let me give you another example from another region. Um, uh, is a good example is a Danish accent. A Danish accent, a little bit like it's backwards for the Danish accent. It's a back inside the back of the mouth because yeah, it's a cold in Denmark, and so it's a little bit more back here, and you can find that the um, Norwegian accent is a little bit more forwards. It's more choppy. The Swedish accent is a little bit like Danish, but it's more in the front of the nose, like there. And then all the Swedes who migrated into the Fargo region, that's why you get, don't you know, the Fargo region. So they're talking up here. Thanks, Cassandra. They're talking up here, and all my friends who are from, that whole region, Minnesota, and the things like that. You're going to find that they don't drop their jaws much in Minnesota, and they're much kind of more talking right up there. Part of the reason is because it's cold up there. Yeah, yeah, and so it's cold up there, so they're going to be speaking much more on the roof of their mouth, and their voices are going to sound a little bit higher, and they're going to talk a little faster, and they're going to smile a lot because it's cold and because they're neighborly people in the Midwest. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Don't you know? Yeah. So what I'm doing now as I play around with this is I'm giving you all kinds of examples of where is the placement. Is your jaw dropping? What is the rhythm? Like I said, all of your friends from the Midwest, they will all talk a lot faster because it's cold and because they're from that culture and because they don't drop their jaw. And so you get to start to look at all these things when you're examining a dialect. Okay, here's a point that I was going to bring up before, but I wanted to save it. With a dialect, as an actor, you want to start to perceive where they put their emotions. So for standard American, we put our emotions on our vowels. And we say, for example, God, that's great. That's fantastic. You know, my friend just booked a role. I'll be like, God, that's great. That's fantastic. Um, in England, they will put their emotions on the consonant. A friend who just booked a role. God, that's great. That's fantastic. That's brilliant. That's fantastic. A British person will never say, God, that's great. That's fantastic. They're going to put that emotion on the consonants. God, that's great. That's fantastic. And so their spark and their juice, British, is going to be on the consonants. Whether it's sexiness is going to be on the consonants. Anger is going to be on the consonants. Jealousy is going to be on the consonants. American, anger is going to be on the consonant. Anger is going to be on the vowels. What? What the? God damn it. And a British person would never say, God damn it. They would say, God damn it. And it's going to be in the consonants. So with French, the same thing with the French. And I see with people who try to do, for example, the French accent, the vowels are squinched like they are with the Russian. So you will hear a French person say, God, that is great. That is fantastic. That is wonderful. They're not going to say, God, that's great. That's fantastic. Because everything is up there. And when I was learning French when I went to France and I was speaking with my American accent, you know, I would say to my French friends, ah, c'est vrai? C'est super. Je suis toute contente pour toi. And I'd drop my jaw and I'd have my French down there. And I had to learn, oh là là, c'est vrai, c'est fantastique. Je suis toute contente pour toi. But all of that got shoved up there. And so when you're doing those accents, it's the same thing with Russian. Russian, they're a little bit no vowels, and they express on consonants. If they're angry, their anger is on consonants. Duh. And so when you have your roles, whether it's for TV, voiceover, video games, narration, you really want to observe. It's the same thing with the German. The German expresses the emotion on the consonants. It stays inside of the mouth, but it is on the consonants. So the Germans are not going to express themselves on the vowels like Americans do. Is all this making sense? Bob your heads if so. Yeah. Okay, good. Cool. I love the thumbs up. Thanks, Veronica. So these are the type of things that you can really listen for and self-coach yourself on. And the more you do it, the better you will be at feeling it. And if you drop into those places when you're working on a role or an accent, suddenly you're not doing the accent anymore, but you're dropping into that. Just like, you know, as an actor, you know, if I drop into a character that's a little girl, I'm going to drop into my own little girl. So I'm going to just drop into the little girl that's inside of me. So I'm not going to do a little girl. I'm going to drop into her. You know, if I'm going to drop into a sort of, you know, controlling person, I'm going to drop into that part of myself to do that role. And the same thing with accents. You're going to drop into that culture. You're going to drop into that feeling. You're going to drop into where they live. Another thing that I find extremely helpful, let me see how much time we have. La, la, la. Okay, when I'm behind the mic, is you can use your hand gestures. What energetic placement does a dialect live in? So standard American, we have a lot of energy around here. And when I talk in standard American, I tend to gesture around here. I don't gesture as much up here. The French accent, they are always gesturing. Quand je parle français, c'est absolument partout là. And they gesture like right around here. Italians are gesturing there. See. And when you're at the mic, you want to allow your hands to gravitate to where that dialect energetically lives. Do you feel that American kind of grounds down? Do you hear that British grounds upwards towards the roof of the mouth? And can you hear that also the grounding on the British accent is on the roof of the mouth? It grounds there. One more detail before I open up to questions is you want to observe what the tongue is doing. So with a Russian accent, Russian is easy. You see a Russian, very active tongue, very Russian. They like the L's. You can talk like a Russian at home. You can feel the tongue very, very active in the Russian. Da. You can feel with British, the tongue is much, much more active than in American. If you speak regular standard American, you can feel it. I tell my accent reduction clients that your tongue is basically like a dead sea slug that sits in your mouth. Because in standard American, we really don't use the tongue that much. It's like the, and that's really important for people who are trying to do standard American. The minute you like give your tongue a Novocaine injection and don't use it as much, you're going to get that open standard American sound. Italian, the tongue is very alive. Italian. So you're going to go tap into these accents and listen and go, what's that tongue doing? Yeah. So if you don't have a chance or the money or whatever to work with a dialect coach and you have an audition in a dialect, or you're working in a dialect and you're pretty good at it, but you're like, it needs to get better. These are all these things that you can look for. And you can go onto YouTube and listen to people who are like doing an interview in English, but they have an accent, you know? Like I like to listen to, you know, TV or movie stars who are being interviewed in English and hear what they're sounding like. There is a website, I always forget the name of this website. If you Google, somebody can put it up in the chat because I'm sure some of you know it. If you Google the word idea and dialects, you will come across an amazing website. I know one of you probably knows it, just put it in the chat for everybody. You will come across an amazing website where they have people from all over the world talking in their dialect and reading there it is, dialectsarchive.com. Dialectsarchive.com. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you. Hi, Rebecca. And that is gold because you can hear people from all over the world speaking an American dialect, and they will read a text. There's two of them there. One is called Comma Gets a Cure that has all the sounds in all the dialects. And you can literally print up that text and you can transcribe what they're doing on there. And you can learn, if you start to listen to where is it placed, what direction is it going? And then another thing I like to do if I'm really, really working on a dialect is I like to watch movies with people speaking that dialect. Like I had to, in a feature film I did a couple of years ago, I was playing this Northern Irish woman from Northern Ireland who's dying of cancer. And I wanted to really get that dialect very specific. And it's very different from the Southern Irish. And I just rented movie after movie shot in Northern Ireland. I would take my phone or a recorder and I would record parts of that movie. And then I would just walk around and listen to it and work with it and imitate it. And then sometimes I would transcribe those scenes so I could mark up the sounds for myself and see where they come from. And then I could take my script from the film and mark that up. But very often I didn't even have to mark the sounds anymore because once I got the placement and the feeling of it, I could find it. Whew. So that is my very fast, very nuggeted, balled up little ball so I can hand it to you. All kinds of tools that I use when I coach, that I give to people, that I please take and use. And literally, like, I am not brilliant at this. I just use these tools a lot. And if you all use them for everything you're doing, you'll be surprised at how good you get at this stuff and how much easier it was than you thought. So we have just a tiny bit of time and I want to take some questions so this becomes more of a dialogue. I see a lot of you on the screen. The best thing right now would be is just to pop yourself on the screen and wave. And if I see you waving, then I'll answer those questions first. And if not, I'll go into the chat. Before I do that, I just want to let you guys know that I post a lot of dialect stuff and I post dialect tips and things like that on Instagram. And my Instagram is at Karen Strassman. So if you ever want to check in, I try and post, and then you'll also see pictures of my cat and, and then my heartfelt philosophies about life. So you'll have to put up with that, but you'll also get some accent tips here and there if you want to follow. All right, let's get questions. Just wave your hand. And if I don't see hands waving, I'll go into the chat. Any questions? Hey, Jeff Burns. Tessa Markle, I see you. Question.
Yeah. Are you willing
Hey.
to share your email address as well if we want to do like a one-on-one coaching thing?
Oh my goodness, of course. My email address is Karen Strassman Coaching at gmail.com.
Thank you.
And I'm going to be giving 2 classes with the Help Network. And we've talked about it with Julian and the Help Network. And we decided just to focus on 2 different accents, and I'm going to do 2 different classes. And I'm just going to do accents that are fairly easy to learn, that you can basically learn in a 3-hour class and get strangely good at, like surprisingly good at in a 3-hour class. Or if you already do it, I'll help you get better at it. So we're going to do 1 class with a French accent and 1 class with a Russian accent. And if those are successful and people want to do more, or there are requests for specific accents, I'm happy to do those as well. And Julian will post, will send, I think he has you guys, everybody who's signed in, he'll have emails and he'll send that out and he'll send it to his mailing list. So if you guys want to go on the Help Network and sign up for the Help Network's mailing list, then you can get all the information about the classes that I'm going to do with them and all the other classes that they do. And be part of, they just have such a beautiful community. And they're really about empowering actors and giving you guys information and like doing free things like this. The specific dialect classes will be paying classes. And we'll have that information for you and they'll send that. But you can, and I will post everything I do on my website, which is just www.karenstrassman.com. Okay, more questions. And Julian, you can post, Julian, if you want to post any information up here for people that I haven't included so that they see that, please do that. All right, more questions. Nadine, hey lady.
Hey, off of that other one, you said that Russian and French are kind of the easier ones to do. What would you consider like a really hard advanced accent or dialect?
That's a good question. And I think that it's different for different people because I think people have different proclivities for different accents.
Yeah.
Like for some people, the Australian and New Zealand accents tend to be a little bit more difficult to get them right. And then for some people are like, they do Aussie with their eyes closed, standing on their head. But for a lot of people, they're like, oh, that's a little bit more difficult.
Interesting.
Yeah, Aussie is a little more difficult too, because they have that placement for British, but they also have a much more open jaw. And so people who do British well or Cockney, it kind of, how do you get that specific? So that tends to be a little bit more complex. I mean, this is a good example. North African is such a beautiful accent, North African. And I've done that for various roles and TV auditions, and it's just beautiful, but it's very complex. So that's the kind of thing most people don't pick up. Most people don't pick that up in 3 hours or in 2 hours, unless you're Dave Mitchell. So yeah.
Cool.
More questions. More questions. Yes, Lucian. Am I pronouncing your name right?
Oh,
Lucian?
yeah, yeah,
Good.
exactly. That's
I
correct.
see that. I
So,
see that with my French background. I
sorry.
think Lucien.
So I
Give
have a
give me a question.
question.
Yeah.
Like, what about Jewish? Like, where does that, if it's a Jewish accent, where would that fall to?
So there are many different kinds of Jewish accents. Um, so it just depends on what part of the world they're in. So my dad is Jewish and he's from New York. So all my Jewish relatives are Jewish and from New York, and you can really hear that. And that's right inside the front roof of the mouth. And they're always like Karen, Karen. They always call me Karen, call me Karen. So that's kind of in that, and then you get the Jewish grandmothers, and that's kind of fun to do, and then you can play around with that. Hebrew, Israeli, is placed very similar placement to where Arabic is placed. So, and I'm not good at Israeli. Israeli is another one that it's not that complicated, but it's something, if I hear somebody do it, then I can imitate it, but I'm not always good at doing it off the cuff. Israeli accent is much more in, so Israeli accent almost sounds like it's part of French and part of Arabic. And it's very much in the front of the mouth, like the French is, but it's more pushed forwards. I'm not doing a very good job. I'd have to listen to it and practice it, which is proof that I'm not a genius, that I'm just, but Arabic, I mean, Israeli, Hebrew, is in the front of the mouth like Arabic is, but they use their consonants in a way that French almost does. So a lot of you might hear somebody speaking with a Hebrew accent, and some people think it's almost French, but it is thicker. It's different. It's like it's more forwards. Um, and then I know people who have a very light Hebrew accent, and my favorite word that people say with their Hebrew accent is food. They don't say food, but they say food, food. And they say that word a lot because they make delicious food. Um, and then there's Yiddish, which is more insides of the mouth. It's a German, so they're going to have that more German feeling. Gewollt, I gewollt. So it's going to be more in here. I gewollt. I don't speak Yiddish, but it's going to have that more German placement. But it's going to have a little bit more chutzpah. The German is a little bit more reserved, and the Yiddish has more chutzpah. So it's going to have a little bit more of a push forwards. Do you see, you guys, in me answering these questions, how I'm using these different elements that I spoke about during this hour? And you want to look for this stuff. Great question, Lucian. Great question.
Thank you.
Another question. Yeah, Cassandra. Thanks for your enthusiasm, lady. It's so great watching all of your faces. It's very encouraging.
I'm from Wisconsin, so I was like, the Fargo, Fargo accent's so good, don't you know?
And do you hear when she does that, how it's right up on the roof of her mouth and she doesn't drop her jaw? Yeah.
Oh
Talk a
yeah,
little
it's
bit
like
more so
Canadian.
people
Oh
hear
yeah,
it.
it's kind of up there.
Yeah, it's up there. And then it's through the nose.
Oh yeah. Anyway, so and I get into it sometimes, just that. So I wanted to try to kind of learn the Irish accent.
Yes.
What's the main difference between the Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland? What are like the two main differences of those two? And then I also wanted to ask what your favorite accent for you personally to do is.
My favorite accent is Danish because it feels like home.
Nice.
Yeah. No, when I hear a Danish accent, I hear my mother, and I hear my aunt, who's my favorite, who even passed away. So yeah, when I hear the Danish accent, it's very sweet. I also just love Russian because it's so playful, and I love French because it also feels like home. Those are the easy questions. Okay. So the Irish accent. The Irish accent. It's gonna, let me see. I've been doing so many today that I might not drop into it very well. But faith and begotten. So the Irish accent. The Irish is right behind. It's the roof of the mouth behind the front teeth. So when you're talking with an Irish accent, you can hear that it's there's a push on the roof of the mouth. Irish. You say it at your home, Irish accent, really. And the main difference is because between the Southern Irish and so let me go into origin. So Northern Irish, it's gonna have that same feel to it that you get in Northern England as well. The Southern Irish accent, it's going to be, and I'm not dropping into it well right now, but it's going to be, it's going to have much more of that typical stereotypical lilt, you know, the Lucky Charms and green clovers and that sort of thing. It's going to have that lovely lilt to it. The Northern Irish is going to be a lot harder. And there's a couple specific sounds that are very different that I really focused on when I did this film. I'm not finding them right now, and I don't want to, want to do them justice, but there's one that really has that Northern England feel to it that's a lot harsher, and the Northern Ireland does not have that lilt. It doesn't have that sort of, it's a lot, it has that working class feel to it. So you will be able to feel into that culturally. It's really frustrating me because there's a very specific sound. And I just haven't touched into Irish in the past 2 weeks, so it's not forefront with me. But another day I will, once we hang up from this, I'll find the sound and, and I'll try and like telepathically get it to you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Julian, you're going to have to stop me because I'm going to keep taking questions until you tell me to stop. Give me another question, somebody. Any other questions? Yeah. Mayo?
Yeah, Mayo.
Mayo, hey.
Hi, so I'm from Japan, but I've been in US for like many years. And I get asked so many like, can you do Japanese accent? Can you do Asian American accent? And I'm like, what is the Asian American accent? That's the question.
It's a good question. I'll tell you, that's a great question, you guys. And this is going to be really helpful for when you need to do an accent, but do very little. Okay, so what would be considered an Asian American accent would be somebody who grew up with parents who spoke with the Japanese muscle group. Because what happens is even if somebody who grows up with Japanese parents grows up in America, their parents are going to be talking to them when they're babies with the Japanese muscle group. So what's going to happen is as babies, even as they learn to speak American, they are going to speak American with those muscle groups. So this is going to be incredibly politically incorrect. So bear with me and I apologize. Japanese accent, stereotypical Japanese accent, they're going to be on the roof back of the mouth. So Japanese accent going to be more back roof of mouth. You hear back there. So the Japanese accent do not use their jaw down here and they don't resonate in their chest at all. So when you get somebody who did not grow up speaking Japanese, but their parents use that Japanese muscle group that they physiologically mirrored when they were growing up. So you're going to get somebody who's going to be speaking more on the roof of their mouth. So even though they are speaking American, you can hear that I am speaking American, but I'm speaking a little bit, there's a rhythm like a little bit more choppy. So my Asian friends, a little bit more choppy than regular American, and they're more speaking on the roof of the mouth, right? So they're not speaking here and here. It's not down there, but literally the grounding is on the roof like that. Does that make sense? And then there's various, like, I'm exaggerating it a little bit so that you can hear it, but then you can even pull it back a little bit more and you can still have that placement, but you can feel that there's a little bit of the choppy thing, and you can feel that there's a little bit of the rhythm for the Japanese, but you can feel it sounds completely American, but you can feel that there's that leftover muscle, those are the muscles that that culture will be favoring. Does that make sense to you guys? Mayo, is that an acceptable answer and not offensive? Let me check what our time thing looks like. Where are we? 12:08. I should probably stop, right, Julian? Let me stop and respect your guys' time. I just want to thank you for your generosity. It's been so cool to see all of your faces here, and I'm so sorry if I didn't get to address a lot of the things that are coming up in the chat. Feel free to ask these questions on Instagram, and even if I get a list of questions on Instagram, I can make them public. Um, and please feel free to check into the Help Network and get on their mailing list and check into their classes. And if you are on their mailing list, and you'll get the information about the French and Russian class that I'll be teaching, probably one in January and February, I think. Yeah, I'm happy to, I'm at your disposition to answer questions and stuff. If you email me at my coaching email, sometimes it takes me a couple days or a week to get back because I go to the buffet of life and I put way too much on my plate and I try and do it all, and then I get behind in my communication. So if for some reason I don't answer you, just wait a week and ping me back again and say, Karen, you said to bug you. Because it's not out of not wanting to communicate. I just I have a full plate sometimes because I'm a little too excited and passionate about life. I send you all the best energy for booking, for your work, for being able to fall into delightful play, to bring your passion for what you do to the mic and to everywhere you go, and to have that delight and passion and play be contagious. So we can do our job of making people feel things and smile. And I'm just feeling your guys' presence in your souls, and I'm honored that you took this time to hang out together. And I hope something I said here was useful to you guys. So I'm wishing you a beautiful day and a beautiful week. And take good care. Bye, you guys.